Hello everybody, and welcome to a new video of mine. I'm doing this a little differently from a different setup. Right now I'm in the living room of my parents' house, and with me is my mother.
Hello.
So this is the first time I've ever done it like this. The setup is kind of similar to Renegade's React, which my mother's not familiar with, but that's okay. So today we are reacting to the trailer for the Northman, which is a new movie by the same director as The Witch and The Lighthouse, Robert Eggers. I was interested in doing a reaction to this in this way because I love Robert Eggers, I love The Witch, I love The Lighthouse, and this has actors from that movie, Anya-Taylor, who played Thomason in The Witch, and Willem Dafoe from The Lighthouse. He played Old, as his character is described in the screenplay. But also, I wanted to do this with my mother because, like her, she is a fan of folk horror, as I am. But she also is a fan of Alexander Skarsgård, who we know originally from True Blood. He played probably, arguably, the best character in that show, Eric Northman. We were both fans of Eric Northman.
Oh yeah.
It's some of the lines he had in that TV show were so fucking funny.
Yes.
There was in the second season where his hair gets his hair gets fucked up, and he asked, was it Pam that he asks, how's my hair?
Right.
Which reminds you so much of Ulysses Everett McGill,
right,
from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Is there blood in my hair?
Right.
But even beyond that, some of the other stuff he did, he was on top of, what was it, Jason? His car, and he, peers down from the hood of the car, and he's like,
pull over.
Fuck, man. Please.
Yes.
So there's that, and then he drinks Sookie's blood, and he's in the lake, and he says,
Gators. Crocodiler! Show yourselves!
And then the other one where he's in the, it's like that prison camp or something like that. He kills a guy, and he's holding a dismembered arm that's dismembered, I want to say from here. And he's holding it, in this place, and he goes, "You're free. Go forth and kill the humans." And then toward the end of the 8th season, he killed all those guys that were working on this cure for the sort of hepatitis hybrid that was meant to kill vampires. And he has them all packed in this car that was owned by the businessman. And he's got them all packed in there. He's listening to music. He's driving, and he's grooving with with the music.
Yes.
So we're fans of, obviously we're fans of Alexander Skarsgård. We are also fans of his other family members. His father being the famous Stellan Skarsgård, whom you all may know from movies like Deep Blue Sea.
You did it, pal. You did it.
Good Will Hunting. Breaking the Waves, which, you know, my mother hasn't seen, but I have. It's a Lars von Trier movie, which, if you know Lars von Trier's work, go in with caution, because his work is pretty rough. But he was also in the TV show River.
Excellent.
Yeah, which my mother introduced me to. She first saw it. Tell us a little bit about River.
Well, I've seen it now 3 times. Love it so much. But yeah, it saw it first on Netflix. Saw paging through Netflix one night when I was home by myself and getting ready to eat dinner, looking for something to watch, and saw that Stellan Skarsgård was in it, and I thought, well, this has to be good. And he plays a detective, and he, you know, with some special skills, and it's just a single season, 6 episodes, and it just hooks you from the very first episode, and at least it did me. So binged the whole thing in one night, and just talked it up so much with my family that I have binged through it, I think 3 times now with my husband and now my son, and they both loved it, so highly recommend it. I think it's on Amazon Prime now, it's no longer on Netflix, but yeah, anyway.
It is a very good show. It's very well written. Go in with caution, because it does deal with topics that warrant trigger warnings. If you're a victim of abuse, I'm not to spoil anything, but if you're a victim of abuse, I would highly recommend going in with caution, or if you can't deal with that kind of subject matter, I don't recommend watching it. But it is very well written. Stellan Skarsgård is great, as usual. But we're Skarsgård fans. We're fans of Stellan, we're fans of Alexander, we're fans of Bill.
Yeah.
Bill Skarsgård, which we were first introduced to him through Hemlock Grove, which was one of the earliest shows. This was when they were starting to get into doing TV shows. I shouldn't say TV shows, like streaming shows. It would be a more accurate term, because this was created around the same time House of Cards was created, and this was when they were starting to create original content very early on. So they were doing that. Bill Skarsgård was in that show. He played an Oupir, which was like a cross between a vampire and a human, something like that.
Yeah.
But this was certainly before he really came into his own, playing Pennywise in the new adaptation of It, as well as playing that unnamed prisoner in Castle Rock, which was on Hulu, which good show, recommend that. So we had to take a pause for a moment to deal with something, well, not deal with something, but
Yes.
we were responding to a phone call, a very important phone call that needed to be dealt with. I won't get into the details because it was a personal family matter, but it's not a bad one. It's not a bad one. It was a very good one. But like I said, I won't get into the details.
We're back on?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, we are. We're not, so I won't get into the details of that because it is private. But like I said, everything's okay. Everything's fine. Everything's great, actually. So, but looking at the cast of the Northman, Claes Bang is also in it, which
So cool.
my mother noticed, and that really, like, sort of got our attention. If you could explain who Claes Bang is.
Well, I actually didn't know who he was at all until Dracula.
The Netflix series, right?
Dracula. And he was just dynamite in that. Absolutely dynamite.
Yeah. If you could explain who Claes Bangs played
So
in
he
that
played,
series.
played Dracula.
Oh, he was the titular character
So
in that
he
one.
played Dracula, and absolutely fantastic. If you haven't seen the Netflix Dracula with Claes Bang, and you love any type of horror or anything like that, you should really, really watch it. He is fantastic and plays Dracula the way Dracula should always be played, in my opinion, as a psychopath.
Yep, absolutely, a malignant narcissist.
Yeah, or actually, well, yes, but more psychopath, really, which is just someone who has no feelings for anyone. A malignant psychopath or a malignant narcissist will sometimes they will have feelings, but a psychopath is just cold and calculating, and that's really, in my opinion, who Dracula is. Has nothing, feels nothing for anyone. He's just out for blood, essentially.
It is very true.
Yeah.
He is very much out for blood, and his only goal is to create more vampires because he's alone, but it's a narcissistic type of loneliness where he wants everybody to be just like him. He can't,
or some to be like him. Maybe not everybody, because you've got to have food.
mm-hmm.
You got to have some food. But it's a really interesting portrayal of Dracula, and then I just think it removes the romance
Mm-hmm.
from how many other portrayals, which those portrayals are fine and everything, but I think when you read the book, Dracula, it's much more, Dracula is not romantic, and so many other portrayals really try to pull in that he's, got these love interests or feelings or whatever, or that there's there's certainly these romantic elements there that I don't think exist, and this portrayal really shows that very, very well.
Well, the Gary Oldman version, which a lot of people list that as the best adaptation, the most faithful adaptation of Dracula, even then, when you read the original screenplay by James V. Hart, who also was one of the writers of what would later become Kenneth Branagh's Frankenstein. He was like one of the earliest writers, because that movie was released 2 years after Dracula and was produced by Francis Ford Coppola, who directed the Gary Oldman Dracula. But in any case, even that one, it starts off with Dracula having a love interest, and there wasn't any of that in the book. And that's something that I think people tend to forget, was he had no love interest. There was nothing romantic about him. He was a self-centered, decrepit old man.
Right. Just a psychopath.
Yeah, he was a self-centered psychopath, which is redundant.
Yeah.
But he was a self-centered old man who got younger when he drank blood, which they kept in the Coppola version, and they also use in the Netflix version.
Right.
But he doesn't care about anything, not even his 3 brides. He just wants to create more vampires because he's lonely. But like I said, it's a narcissistic type of loneliness because he wants because he can't exist in a world where there are people who are different from him. He has to have at least a few people who are just like him.
Yeah, it's control, obviously, which is very much in that, you know, keeping with the idea of psychopathy and narcissism and control and that whole, you know, and that's really what, you know, Bram Stoker was writing about.
Yeah, and he based it on Henry Irving, whom he was a manager of, which makes me wonder whether or not Irving was that way. And I'd like to research him more. But anyway, getting back to the Northman, so already you've got a stellar cast. Alexander Skarsgård, Claes Bang, Anya-Taylor Joy, Willem Dafoe, whom we've been fans of for years. I mean, Spider-Man, Shadow of the Vampire, Lighthouse, Florida Project, Platoon. I mean, if you want to talk about Willem Dafoe, he was the one who is in the poster, that very famous poster for Platoon, who's got his arms up like this while he's getting shot. That's Dafoe.
And we don't want to skip over Anya-Taylor Joy here at all.
Oh, no.
Yep. We want to, you know, include all the movies that she's been in her just very, very brief career.
Yeah, The Witch.
I conjure thee to speak to me. Speak as thou dost speak to Jonas and Mercy.
Which is where she really came into attention. She was also in Split.
Rejoice.
Which is the M. Night Shyamalan movie, which we, as we were watching the movie, as everybody who's watched the movie knew, spoiler alert, we found out that was a stealth sequel to Unbreakable. And she was also in Glass.
Can I talk to Dennis or Patricia, please?
She was my girlfriend. We kissed. Don't worry, I haven't cheated on you.
Which is a follow-up to Unbreakable and Split. And then the other movie she was in, which I'd like to see, is Last Night in Soho.
Oh, right.
Which has Thomasin McKenzie and Anya-Taylor Joy.
Yeah.
It's the new one that Edgar Wright directed.
Right.
And Thomasin McKenzie from Jojo Rabbit. This basically is just going to be us talking about all the movies that we love that have all these actors in them because, let's face it, we're cinephiles. But yes, Anya-Taylor Joy, who is really coming into her own as a stellar actor, and also hosted SNL. Oh, Queen's Gambit. You can't forget about.
Right,
Cannot forget about Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, she was very, very good in that.
Cannot forget about that. Nicole Kidman is also in this movie.
Oh, wow.
I saw her name in there. I've been a fan of Nicole Kidman for years. And it's funny how, like, someone like Nicole Kidman, I don't understand. Like, it's kind of split half and half, where you got people like us who know how versatile she is. We've seen movies like The Others.
Where is my daughter? What have you done with my daughter?
Are you mad? I am your daughter.
Lion.
I feel like we're killing you.
I could have had kids.
What?
We chose not to have kids. We wanted the two of you. That's what we wanted. We wanted the two of you in our lives. That's what we chose.
Or even being the Ricardos.
The script indicates that Ricky takes his hands away from Lucy's eyes, turns her around, and says,
"No, it's me."
So my question again, Jess. Does Ricky honestly, truly believe that there might be 8 different men who routinely walk into their apartment, all of whom sound exactly like Desi Arnaz?
We know how good she is. But then you got people who only know the bad stuff she was in, it seems. And they judge her based on that, which was part of why she got so much backlash for being cast in Being the Ricardos. But soon after they saw Being the Ricardos, they shut up. Like, really fucking quick.
Interesting.
Very interesting. So yeah, we've got a good
Can't
cast.
help it if people just go see bad movies.
Right, and also Ethan Hawke. I also saw his name in this.
Yeah,
Ethan Hawke.
He's terrific.
We have always loved Ethan Hawke for years.
It's a stellar cast.
Oh yeah, first Reformed.
Courage is the solution to despair. Reason provides no answers. We can't know what the future will bring. We have to choose despite uncertainty. Wisdom is holding 2 contradictory truths in our mind simultaneously.
He was excellent in that. Dead Poets Society, which I'm not a big fan of. I know a lot of people are fans of that one. I'm not a fan of it. If we're talking about like teachers influencing students, I'm more of a Mr. Holland's Opus guy than I am a Dead Poets Society guy.
I close my eyes.
Yes?
And this image floats beside me.
The sweaty-toothed madman.
The sweaty-toothed madman with a stare that pounds my brain.
Oh, that's excellent. Now, give him action. Make him do something.
His hands reach out and choke me.
That's wonderful, wonderful.
And all the time he's mumbling.
What's he mumbling?
Mumbling truth.
Yeah.
Truth like a blanket that always leaves your feet cold.
Forget them. Stay with the blanket. Tell me about that blanket.
You push it, stretch it, it'll never be enough. You kick at it, beat it, it'll never cover any of us. From the moment we enter crying to the moment we leave dying, it'll just cover your face as you wail and cry and scream.
But Ethan Hawke is really good in Dead Poets Society. He's really good in First Reformed.
He's very good.
Yes. And Bjork is in this movie. Which, I mean, I like Bjork. I think she's a really good musician and I think a really good singer. I liked her in Dancer in the Dark.
I've seen it all. I have seen the trees. I have seen the willow leaves dancing in the breeze. I've seen a man killed by his best friend and lives that were over before.
Which is a Lars von Trier movie.
Okay.
So there's another little connection to Lars von Trier.
There you go.
I wouldn't recommend that for everybody because, I mean, Lars von Trier, you have to have a certain taste for it because his work can be very hard to view. He did Melancholia, which I know you saw.
I did.
And I think I've seen more of Lars von Trier's work than you have.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, I've seen Breaking the Waves. I've seen Dancer in the Dark. I've seen a little bit of The House That Jack Built, which had Matt Dillon in it. And
I don't think I'm going to see that movie. I've heard about that
well,
one.
I mean, if you were disturbed, and I don't know why anybody wouldn't be. But if you look at the interviews of Ted Bundy and you think, what a fucking asshole this guy is, and you've seen my reaction to No Man of God, you know how I feel about that guy. You're gonna feel that way about The House That Jack Built. He pretty much captures Ted Bundy's vocal inflections to the letter. The way he stares at people. Like, almost like, I'm better than you kind of thing. That's what Matt Dillon does in The House That Jack Built. It's very disturbing. I wouldn't recommend that for everybody. But, I mean, Lars von Trier also worked with Willem Dafoe a couple of times. He worked with him on Antichrist, as well as Nymphomaniac, which I have not seen either of those movies. And if I do, I will approach them with caution, because they're pretty rough. Well, all of Lars von Trier's movies are rough.
Yeah.
But in any case...
Yeah, Melancholy is a really rough movie. I don't know if I could watch that again.
I don't know if I could watch that one again either.
Yeah.
And I know the actress that plays Kirsten Dunst's sister plays the main character in Nymphomaniac. So anyway, cycling back to what we're reacting. So you've got this entire cast, which has an eclectic career, starring in a movie directed by the same bloke that directed The Witch, which was a heavily researched project about New England Puritans, and The Lighthouse, which was a heavily researched project about two men who are stuck in one place in late 1800s New England. Now starring in a movie directed by the same guy about what it looks like heavily researched Viking era. And I think one of the writers of the movie is Norwegian. He's either Norwegian or Swedish, one of those.
Alright.
So obviously you have that. So anyway, so here we go. Here we are. We're gonna do the Northman. 3, 2, 1. Northman trailer now.
Be home.
He's here. He's here. Mother! Father is here! The king, my lady. The king.
Your fate is set and you cannot escape it. How I've missed you, my son. One day this kingdom will be yours.
Thank you, Father. My king.
Such a hellish place.
To find what was stolen from me.
And what is that?
The kingdom. You must choose between kindness for your kin or hate for your enemies.
Your strength breaks men's bones. I have the cunning to break their minds.
And night by night, we will carry out our pledge of vengeance. I will avenge you, Father. I will avenge you, Father. I will save you, Mother. I will save you, Mother. I will kill you, Father.
Okay, so the name of the writer, the co-writer of this, looks Icelandic, which Bjork is Icelandic. You could tell Bjork who she was, but Claes Bang was also, like, you could tell who he was playing, which, I mean, he's done antagonists before, and it looks like he's gonna play an antagonist in this.
Yes. He does them very well.
Yeah, it looks like a really, I don't want to say dirty, but it doesn't look as clean as most epics like this would usually look. I mean, if we're talking, when we say epic movies, obviously we think of filmmakers like David Lean or, you know, in these days Peter Jackson, or, I mean, you could look at the Marvel movies as today's epics. But this looks like the kind of movie that would probably have been made in the days of David Lean, but without the production code holding him back, without those restrictions holding filmmakers like that back. It was like, you know what, be as honest as you can about this time period, while at the same time telling an epic story about a man who's on a journey of revenge.
Do you feel like there's going to be, it looks like there might be, is there supposed to be any sort of mythology in this at all? Or is it supposed to be just like straight storytelling with some religious elements in it?
Knowing Robert Eggers and knowing his approach and his process of storytelling, it looks like there might be some mythology in there. It looks like there might be...
What I mean by mythology, like, I don't mean mythology in religion, I don't mean like straight, like, is there any sort of supernatural elements to it, or is this just going to be straight storytelling with the Norse mythology and religion elements to it, without any, will there be any sort of, you know, supernatural elements in this, or is that's not a part of this? There's no supernatural to it.
Well, just looking at the trailer alone, I think there might be some of that in there, because he does manage to have a supernatural element in his work. The Witch obviously had supernatural elements in them, but it presented it in a way that felt realistic. Was it in the minds of these characters who were just tearing each other apart from the inside out, and then toward the end you realize, oh, there is a supernatural element in this. It was just hidden throughout, and it only took a good eye to, or someone who was really being mindful of it, to realize, oh, this was throughout. It was just hidden. The Lighthouse had that as well. Robert Eggers did admit that not only did he pull from a real story, where there were these two men, both of whom named Thomas, who were stuck in this lighthouse. One killed the other. He had the cabin fever element in there. But he also pulled from Herman Melville, as far as, you know, how they talked. But he also had some H.P. Lovecraft in there, where where it was in the sense that the main character should have stayed ignorant of the truth. He was lucky to have been ignorant, because when he discovered the truth, he became mad. He became crazy, which is very common in all of Lovecraft's work. But he also, as my brother, my younger sibling, pointed out, he pulled a little bit of Prometheus, the Prometheus story, in The Lighthouse. He pointed that out. And Robert Eggers did admit that later on in the writing. It was inadvertent at first, but in the rewriting of it, he realized, oh, there's a little bit of the Prometheus story in there. So he really pulled from the Prometheus story. So I think there might be some religious elements in the Northman. I think there might be, he's definitely pulling from Norse mythology, because he's that kind of, he is that kind of storyteller. He knows how to research his subject as thoroughly as possible. He knows how to not romanticize it in any way, shape, or form. We've seen The Witch, we've seen The Lighthouse, we know that romanticizing that time in history is not, that doesn't interest him.
I would agree with that, yeah. Which makes it all the more interesting because, yeah, he isn't romanticizing, but he is pulling in the mythologies and or the religious elements, or both of them actually, and banging them up against each other, which, like the folk horror and the religion that he did in The Witch, he banged those two things right up against each other. And that was very nice.
Well, that scene where, I think, what was it, Caleb? Who is the son who, we're going to get into spoiler territory on this, but he was the one who became affected by the witch's power after, what was it, Samuel? The baby that gets kidnapped. And he's the one who has that really famous scene where he's lying down on the ground, and then he sort of bolts up and professes his love to the Lord, and then he dies.
Yeah.
Which I think that's the scene I think about the most when I think about that movie. I think about that scene.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very powerful. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how he approaches the Norse mythology, which, like many other things, was overtaken by Christianity as those two things sort of banged up against each other. And I don't know if he'll bring those elements together in this film, or not, or if he'll stick with the Norse mythology in this, or how those two things, if they'll even come together in this at all.
I have to think he will put them together, just because that seems to be part of his style of storytelling.
It does.
Because he did that in The Witch, and he did do that in The Lighthouse. Although he doesn't blatantly list the Christian element in The Lighthouse,
Right.
like he did in The Witch.
Right.
And even in The Witch, he doesn't blatantly. Even in The Witch, I mean, there is a religious element in there, but he doesn't. I don't recall him saying, Jesus or anything like that. Although it's hinted.
Well, yeah,
it's hinted that it is, because it is about Puritans, and Puritans.
Oh, yeah.
I think Puritans were Christian.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Puritans were Christian, so you have to have some kind of knowledge of Puritans and Puritanism to know that, these guys were Christians, but they were, they were nutcases. They were, I hate to be insensitive to that, but there was that element where they were so embedded in that they just they turned on each other and they tore each other apart because of this sense of pride, because of this this faith that they so believed in, that they were willing to turn on each other, and they had Thomason as the scapegoat.
Yeah, but I think that's the problem with not just authoritarian Christianity. It's really...
Hey, little different area. So, for some reason the camera stopped recording, when we were talking, but we're just going to quickly wrap this up with our thoughts. We're excited about the new movie, The Northman.
Indeed.
You know, excited about what the future holds for Robert Eggers' remake of Nosferatu that he is attached to. Maybe he'll do the scene where he's carrying his coffin in the middle of the night.
Please do it. Do
yes.
it. If you happen to hear this, Robert, which probably not, but you know,
I'll tag him. I'll tag him.
Fingers crossed on the carrying the coffin through the streets scene.
Well, I'll be sure to tag him in this. Put a hashtag Robert Eggers, hashtag carry the coffin.
Please.
that'll be the hashtag. So anyway, so yeah, that was our reaction to the Northman trailer. Very excited to see it. This was my mom, and hope you guys have a very safe week. Thank you so much for viewing. Please subscribe to see more. If you want to see more reactions with me and my mother, or me and someone else, please let me know. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe and healthy. And remember, it's chaos. Be kind.